You're listening to ayahuascapodcast.com.
One ape tried the mushrooms, and this first experience by this first ape was the first time that we knew there was anything more to this existence. The first lesson from that first ceremony was one of language. My focus is really on mushrooms, but it's really true for just about everything, is they affect the border between this world and the next. A microdose, it's like putting a little crack in that wall. At a normal dose, it's like poking a hole, and the more you do, the larger the hole. At the breakthrough dose, it's like taking a sledgehammer and knocking down that wall. The first stage of overdose is you don't remember what you did. So if you don't remember what you did, why'd you do it? You definitely went too deep. Tips for all of this work is to make sure that you let go and you accept whatever's happening. If you feel like you're dead, instead of freaking out, oh no, I'm dead, what do I do? You just have to accept that, okay, well, I'm dead, so what's next? Your soul is more powerful than anything else. Your soul wants to come back. The goal is to get you to actually truly connect with it. It is more powerful than any shaman. It is what will guide you back to your body as long as you truly accept you are it and you came here for a reason.
Hi guys, and welcome to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, we do the host, Sam Believ. Today I have an interview with Dave Hodges. Dave Hodges or Dave Hodges?
Hodges.
Okay. Dave Hodges. Dave Hodges is known for his advocacy of entheogenic plants as religious sacraments. He's a founder of Church of Ambrosia. Dave regularly consumes between 15 to 25 grams of dried mushrooms in a single session, aiming to deepen his understanding of consciousness and the divine. Dave has been actively involved in legal efforts to protect the use of entheogenic plants as sacraments. This episode is sponsored by La Huayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Huayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Huayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Actually, we're having a retreat right now, and one of the visitors, we were chatting, and he mentioned that recently, there was stuff happening in US that they were cracking down on churches and stuff like that. So that's how I found you. It was just a few days ago, and it's pretty cool that we're on a call now. That's the beauty of, I guess, modern day and internet. But before we get into all this juicy stuff, tell us about your story. Like, how does one become a leader of a psychedelic church?
Well, I mean, it's a long story, but in short, we started as a cannabis church, and I'd had a deep relationship with cannabis for a very long time. And shortly after we opened up, Oakland passed the lowest priority for entheogenic plants, and the one that was calling to me was the mushroom. I had never done mushrooms at the time, so I had to learn what they were before the church could provide them. And there's a whole path I talk about that they took me on, from doing the 5-gram heroic dose and then moving my way up in a very quick matter from 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 to 30 grams in a single dose, all in the intent to understand what mushrooms were and what religion is, where religion came from in the first place. Since that point, which was back in 2019, at least 3 to 4 times a year, I still do the breakthrough dose work myself. The church now has over 125,000 members, and those are all people who have physically come in the church to get cannabis, mushrooms, or DMT from us. But it's been a wild journey, to say the least.
How do you fit 125,000 people? What kind of church do you have?
we that's what we need, actually. We need a much bigger building. The church exists as a physical location where people can get their sacrament, but we're much bigger than that. We have been looking for a larger home for quite some time, and I'm sure eventually we'll find it. But what happened was we were raided in 2019, or actually 2020, early 2020. And from that point, we went from 20,000 members to now over 125. So we've just kind of exploded in ways that we couldn't imagine. Really all because we got raided by the local PD.
That's basically a perfect example of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's like you got some publicity, I guess.
Yeah. Well, before that, we were all word of mouth. So you didn't know unless you knew. And after we were raided, the cat was out of the bag, and there was a bunch of articles talking about how we shut down. Even though we opened the next day, all the articles said we shut down, and people still found us.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. But you're not shut down right now. You're still on it.
Yep. Yeah, we had we did recently shut down our San Francisco location. That was the beginning of this year. The problem was the city was, they weren't doing any criminal charges, but what they kept doing was making up problems that we had with the building. What started with a sliding glass door on the second story building that went to nowhere, which, I agree that didn't need to be there, but that was also not a problem in the building since the building was built until we moved in. And then as soon as we moved in, well, people were just going to fly out that sliding glass door. And, that started a process that ended up, we ended up spending somewhere near $500,000 to try to get that building up to speed before we decided we just couldn't spend anymore.
So, I mean, it is suspicious that they tried to obviously find an issue to close you down on or make you stop functioning. What do you think that is? Like, who's that going against you, and most importantly, why?
Well, as far as we could tell, it was actually somebody in the planning department. We're not sure exactly who, but it was when you deal with government officials, there's so many different levels of them, and there's so many different problems with them. It's really hard to say where exactly it came from, but generally you expect the cops to have something to do with it, or law enforcement. But the law enforcement in San Francisco actually really liked us. That we had worked together with them to try to control some chaos at Hippie Hill on 420, and we regularly provided them video footage of things that were happening around our building. So the cops were actually not the problem. It was more somebody in the planning department who just was absolutely sure that we needed to go, and they were going to figure out how to do it.
Any guesses why?
Yeah, prejudice. There's a lot of people that don't look at us as a real church in their eyes, and don't believe that these sacred tools are the real access to anything. And instead, it's just a bunch of people that want to do drugs.
Let's talk about plant medicines as sacraments. How do you think they help? Yeah.
Yeah, well, the way I talk about really all psychedelics, but my focus is really on mushrooms, but it's really true for just about everything, is they affect the border between this world and the next. At a microdose, it's like putting a little crack in that wall. At a normal dose, it's like poking a hole, and the more you do, the larger the hole. At the breakthrough dose, it's like taking a sledgehammer and knocking down that wall. And the first thing on the other side is your soul. So if you're looking for healing, if you're looking to understand why you went through something, if you're looking to understand questions like why I'm here, what happens after I die, your soul knows all those answers, and it's a matter of being able to get in touch with that. So, to us, this is really the true form of what religion should be, is going in and seeking the answers yourself.
What happens after we die? What have you found so far?
That's a long story. I could talk for a while, and it really all depends.
We have time.
Yeah, but our souls are something that lives outside of space and time, and the way I like to describe it is like a octopus with an unlimited number of tentacles, and each time it dips a tentacle into space and time, it becomes one of us. So what happens after we die really depends on whether that's where the journey stops for that tentacle. There's much more to this existence. But the goal, if you've accomplished what you came to do and you've completed your life with the goals that the octopus put you here to do, you just become part of it again, and then it dips into another space and time.
That's a good way to explain it. Yeah, it's something that I've gathered something similar as well. Souls coming in, having fun, and then going back somewhere, and that it's not the end, it's just the beginning.
It's definitely not the end. Time is an illusion.
I don't think I've ever spoke to anyone who takes 30 grams of mushrooms. I mean, I don't think I ever went above 4.5, and it was a pretty difficult experience as well. So why so much? And what is the difference between a heroic dose and, as you call it, a breakthrough dose?
Well, so I actually don't talk about grams anymore. In the testing that the church has done, we found a 80 times difference between potency of mushrooms. So some mushrooms are 80 times stronger than others. You think you're doing a gram of the weak ones and you do a gram of the strong ones, it's the same as doing 80 grams of the mushrooms you're used to. So now I really talk about the potency of the mushrooms and how much psilocybin you're actually consuming. Back when I did my first doses and a lot of my original work, we hadn't done a lot of testing, and it's really, I don't know how much psilocybin I was consuming back then, definitely a very large amount. But the way I describe where the breakthrough dose starts, so this is helpful in even people recalling their own experiences to try to understand how deep they've gone, because more than likely, either through ayahuasca or through mushrooms, you have reached this breakthrough state yourself. But where the breakthrough dose starts is what we call close eyes, strong visuals. So your eyes are open, everything looks pretty normal, you close your eyes and you see a lot of things. And from there, we use a metric that's a percentage of your body weight, because that's the other big thing that is lost in when you're talking about grams of mushrooms and, I took this many grams versus I took that many grams. There's a factor relative to body weight where a person who is 100 pounds and a person who are 300 pounds, they will experience the same dose completely differently, with the 100-pound person experiencing it roughly 3 times what 300-pound person will. So, we talk about, and on our website, ambrosia.church, we have a calculator. If you know the potency of your mushrooms, you have a batch that's been tested where you can actually figure out where to go. But where that dose starts, as I said, is close-eyed, strong visuals. By about 120% of your breakthrough dose, you get open-eyed visuals, but they're kind of transparent. Things are clearly in the room with you. You see them all around you, but you can kind of see through them. By about 150% of your breakthrough dose, that's where you see things as real as you and me. They're standing in front of you. You can have sensations of touch, smell, and you are either they are in the room with you or you are completely out of your body in another existence. But for me, the benefit of this work, these really deep experiences, when you have to work your way up, there's a few dangers that I'll get into a little later about doing too much too quickly. But when you do get into these spaces, you get direct communication from your soul. You experience things outside of this body. You can get questions answered, the deepest questions that any religion would try to answer, except for this is from direct experience versus some old book or somebody who told you.
What percentages where you have open eye visuals, but you don't remember anything anymore and you forgot how to speak the language and you're stuck in some mental loop?
That's like the exact next point that we should talk about. We consider that to be an overdose. So that the first stage of overdose is you don't remember what you did. So if you don't remember what you did, why'd you do it? You definitely went too deep. The second stage of overdose, which is more of the dangerous one, is where you do things like rip off your clothes and run down the street naked. Now, the thing about these higher realms is it's much like bodybuilding. You know, you wouldn't just, you've never lifted weights before, you wouldn't go and try to pick up 400 pounds. And if you did, you'd probably hurt yourself. There's real importance of slowly working your way up until you're comfortable going deeper. And as you do that, you'll remember more and more. But if somebody has never gone deep at all, and then you even take them to the 120%, they're not going to recall a good chunk of their experience. They'll recall some, but there's really a strong importance to slowly working your way up to these larger doses and giving yourself time to both process and your tolerance to fade before going into the next one.
So you mentioned, getting the direct experience versus the old book. Do you believe the old books were written by someone who had the direct experience, or not necessarily psychedelics?
Oh, well, so the story of our religion, we actually had somebody who did a high dose and went back and lived a lifetime with the original apes, pre-human ancestors that discovered the mushrooms. We actually tracked that back to about 2.6 million years ago, when there was a great time of climate change where our pre-human ancestors were chased out of the forest into the grassland. This story that you can find on our website, and I talk about a lot, is one where we found the mushrooms following a trail of bugs. One ape tried the mushrooms, and this first experience by this first ape was the first time that we knew there was anything more to this existence. The first lesson from that first ceremony was one of language. To us, these are the roots of all religions, that there are hidden truths in every true religion that's out there that track back to the deep use of entheogenic substances.
What do you mean by true religion?
Well, there's, when I say true religion, I'm trying to weed out things like weird sex cults or ones wrapped around aliens where people drink Kool-Aid to go visit the stars. Things with real truth in them. I'm not necessarily saying large religions or any specific flavor of anything, but there's religions that focus on deep teachings and deep universal truths. And then there's religions that are really just focused around one charismatic leader to do whatever they want you to do.
Mostly make money.
Yeah, generally. A lot of other worse things too.
It's interesting you mentioned aliens, and I see, ayahuasca work is different from mushroom work, but there's still similar patterns, and there are some patterns that emerge, and one of them is some people go to this alien direction and some people go to ancient Egypt, and there's many different ones, sort of realmy space, and aliens is one of the routes some people take. So do you, in your experience with high doses, you never encountered that? So you don't think, what do you think about aliens? I'm just curious.
Well, aliens are real. There's the breakthrough dose lets you leave this space and time and interact with things that are outside of this world. I have met many different races and entities and things that would absolutely be considered aliens. I'm not saying they're not real. I'm saying that if somebody is telling you to drink a glass of Kool-Aid so you can go hop on the ship, there's a problem with that. As far as whether or not there are intelligences outside of our existence, outside of our knowing, that interact with us, in some cases on a regular basis, it's absolutely a fact there are. And these tools allow us to interact with some of them in a more direct fashion and actually go to them versus them coming to us.
Yeah, why build a spaceship or you can just take some mushrooms and go visit directly. But do you see aliens real, as in, there are somewhere else in this physical reality, but on the other planet, or is in like another dimension?
Yes. I mean, both. There is life outside of this dimension, and there is absolutely life outside of this world. Um, the ones who have had the most technology developed that would allow them to travel from planet to planet, it's a relatively small number. But one of the ways in which they can do that is by stepping out of this dimension and stepping back into it at another point. So again, yes, you have life that exists outside of this dimension. You have life that exists all over this dimension. In my direct experience, so there's a ceremony that I talk about where I was ripped out of my body and taken to a place of pure light. The place that I describe as the consciousness that existed before all else and what I considered to be God. In that experience, I was given a few questions with a few answers. The main question was, if you were God, what wouldn't you know? And this is where I experienced the creation of space and time and all that exists. Every planet, every substance, every property, every law, all created from what science sees as the Big Bang. Along with that was the seed of life that was distributed along with it. So every world that we can see, every planet that can support life, there is some form of life. It's just which ones have developed at a level that their technology allows them to perceive and travel between others.
So speaking of God, the understanding that I sort of recently gained is, we're all God, and it's like if you're a leaf on a tree and the tree is God, you're a leaf, but you're still God. Like, what do you think about God?
The air we breathe, the chair we're sitting on, we are all God experiencing itself in every way possible. That's what I was shown. The Big Bang was God not just creating everything, but becoming everything to experience itself in every way possible.
Cool. So so I run an ayahuasca retreat, right? And it's a pretty different way of living your life, but I can't imagine running a church. What kind of job is it running a church?
Well, doing what we do and what I do specifically, there's a lot of interaction with lawyers and city officials and a little bit of everything. But our goal is to make sure that people have safe access and information so that they can use these substances and find their own truths. On a day-to-day basis, we interact with in some cases, hundreds of people that have questions about what these sacraments do, how to use them safely, and we're a place where people can go and both acquire those and learn what they need to learn to use them safely.
But do you ever do sacraments in the church itself, like in a ritual, or?
No. Especially in the high dose work, it's definitely not something you want to do around other people or in public. But in general, our facility is relatively small, and it's in a relatively bad area in Oakland. By far not the worst, but it's not a place where we can host people to do this sort of work. So we recommend that they find a safe place, ideally at home, around people that they trust who know what they're doing, and that's where they do their work. We do have a project called God Sitters, which is a house in the Oakland Hills where we dose people with these breakthrough doses. It's not exactly open to the public, but we do open it for anybody that comes across me and asks about it. That is, we do the dose where there's two sober sitters, one person on the dose. The dose is done downstairs. It's this 2-story building. The sitters stay upstairs. The person's downstairs in a room with nothing on the walls, a bed on the floor, and just a safe place for them to go deep into themselves with themselves. The sitters are there to make sure that if something happens, like the house catches fire or they hear a loud thud, somebody can go check on you, and so that you know that you have somebody safe around you who understands what you're doing. But the whole goal is to let people get deep into themselves, with themselves, for themselves.
And why inside of the house? Why not outside in the nature? And just what do you think about the connection with nature?
When you're there's many different ways to use psychedelics and mushrooms specifically, but when you're talking about the breakthrough dose, you're leaving your body. If you leave your body and an animal comes and decides to chew on it, you might have a problem when you come back. The way that we recommend these breakthrough doses being done is in a safe environment with a bed and a bathroom nearby. There are people who do them out in nature, but for us, it's making sure that we have a safe container for your body to keep your body safe when you're not in it.
So when you say you're leaving your body, it's the soul leaving the body?
Yeah. I mean, you have experiences where, especially on the extremes of the breakthrough dose, you completely acknowledge you are not in your body. If somebody who was to come in and check on you, they would just see you. What they appear is you just passed out on the floor. If you ask you what you were doing in that, you will tell them that, no, I just wasn't there. So it's really important to make sure that we have a safe container for people. And the bed and the bathroom are pretty essential. You want to have a comfortable space for your body. And if there are any accidents that happen, having a shower and a bathroom right next to you are very nice.
So if the soul leaves the body, does it always come back?
So far, you might feel like you never come back. And one of the more important tips for all this work is to make sure that you let go and you accept whatever's happening. If you feel like you're dead, instead of freaking out, oh no, I'm dead, what do I do? You just have to accept that, okay, well, I'm dead, so what's next? If you feel like you're trapped in a space and you'll never come back, again, the only thing you can do is just accept that you're trapped in that space. You did it to yourself and you'll never come back. You will, but focusing on whether or not you're going to and focusing on what happens because you're dead, that will only limit what you're trying to do. The goal is, especially when you're dealing with a death experience, to understand what happens after death.
Do you have any priests or shamans in your religion? Like someone that maybe, if a soul can't come back, like in ayahuasca work, we have shamans, right? And sometimes people go very deep and then they can sort of help them navigate their way back. Do you do something like that, or?
We haven't found the need to. One of the biggest things that has made the work a lot safer is understanding this potency and dosage relative to body weight. Where we have, especially before we had that calculation, we have taken people too deep. It's just a matter of time before they come back. So we want to make sure that the environment's safe, that they aren't planning on going anywhere that night, and that they got somebody who's experienced these deep realms to be able to talk to them after they come out. But really, the worst experiences where we've seen the overdose and potential harms that come out of going too deep, too quick, and not understanding what you do, I haven't yet had somebody not come back. I've had multiple people who just decided that they never wanted to do this work again. And honestly, all but one have eventually come back and maybe 6 months to a year later and said, okay, I'm ready to go back. I understand that I was just too afraid of what I was dealing with and I went too far. But it's your soul is more powerful than anything else. Your soul wants to come back. The goal is to get you to actually truly connect with it. And it is more powerful than any shaman. It is more powerful than any guide. It is what will guide you back to your body as long as you truly accept you are it and you came here for a reason.
And, like every religion has a book. Did you have to write your own book, or you using some other book, or?
Yeah, I'm actually, it's funny you say that. In the next several weeks, our book will be in the first stages of printing. We're going to do a few rounds of feedback to people in the community before we do the final printing of it. But we do have our own book where we talk about the practices and that first tribe that found the mushrooms and the lessons that they learned to guide us to where we are.
It's cool. You have a name already?
Yeah, it's the Book of Ambrosia.
Cool. What is ambrosia anyway? I remember when I was living in south of Russia when I was a kid, there was a plant called ambrosia, and it was kind of like a pest plant that would just grow everywhere, and if you touch it, it like burns your hands. Is that the same thing?
Ambrosia means food of the gods.
Ah, okay. Cool. What is your craziest realization that you got through this extremely deep plant work? Something that like, makes you view life different forever ever after that.
I would. There's too many that I could say that completely changed my outlook on reality. If you want something crazy that is actually more of a warning when doing this work, I did right as we were learning this potency and body rate ratio, the last major overdose I did, I started by experiencing nuclear death outside of time. And if you imagine nuclear death, if a bomb were to go off right next to you, it'd be beyond instantaneous. You remove time from that equation, and you can experience as every atom is affected. The warning and the reason I experienced that, it was the day I did a ceremony the day after Russia first attacked Ukraine, and I decided that was going to be a focus of my ceremony. I definitely don't recommend focusing on interdimensional wars, which is what I learned. There's a lot more going on to the truth behind this push for war and destruction. Unless you're really ready for it. It was a part of my path that I needed to understand, and it started a phase of ceremonies. There was actually 3 ceremonies over the next 6 months that all focused on that same topic and all brought me to the same space where I was dealing with those sort of things. But what I was dealing with were some entities that wanted all humans to experience nuclear death. And what I saw was there were shamans on both sides, on the Ukrainian side and on the Russian side, along with these entities causing what we're still experiencing today. And again, the motivation of those entities is they want all humans to experience nuclear death.
Okay. Let's go back to the legality of psychedelics in US and like the whole drug war. And I mean, you do your thing and you trip on very high doses of mushrooms and you experience deep stuff. Like, as far as I can see, you're not hurting anyone. Why do you think they want to shut you down? And just the whole war on drugs? Why do you think it happens?
Well, the war on drugs is all about money. And you have to understand the different players and the motivation behind it. But actually, our raid was a perfect example of that. I don't necessarily want to go into the full details of the raid, but I did manage to talk them out of continuing to raid us. After they started raiding us, I came down there yelling at them that they were violating our religious freedom. They told me to go away. I went away, and I came up with a plan with my attorneys to come back with a letter that said, hey, if you sign this, we'll let you into the safes and you can pack your bags and leave. The head cop, the sergeant on scene, really didn't want to be there, and he said he couldn't sign it, but if we let them into the 8-hour safe, so we had a bunch of safes there, but one of them is a professional jeweler safe rated at 8 hours for a professional safe cracker. So you have all your tools, you knew exactly what you're doing. Best case scenario, it takes you 8 hours to get into the safe. If you let us into the 8-hour safe, we'll pack our bags and leave. Well, what they expected to be in the 8-hour safe, and the real motivation behind all this is, if we had a bunch of money, you'd expect it to be in that safe. Unlucky for them, that safe just hadn't been used, and there was nothing but some old paperwork in there. So I let them into the 8-hour safe. The sergeant, or the officer that caused the raid, got pissed off, threw the shit on the ground, and then they packed their bags and left. But the whole motivation was a smash and grab to take money. And when you look at the overarching war on drugs, the more drug dealers there are, the more money these people can take from the drug dealers. And if you follow that money through the asset forfeiture laws and where it goes and how it gets spent on what they call our good things, which are equipment and training. The people that decide what equipment gets purchased and who provide the training are the associations. These are things like the Chief of Police Association, the League of Cities, the Counter Narcotics Officers Association, which those are replicated in every state, sometimes even in every county, in every state, and at a national level. So this is a large group of government influencing entities who then end up with this money to help pay politicians to get elected, and so that they also allocate even more money for this entire network. But it's really all about money, and the easiest way to spell it out is the more drug dealers there are, the more money there is for them to take from drug dealers. It's not about morals. It's not about keeping people safe. It's about money.
But in your case, I mean, you're not a drug dealer, you're a church, and as far as I know, churches don't even have to pay taxes. Why? How can they take your money then?
Well, what they did was illegal, but what they did was they submitted a false affidavit to a judge. And when I say false, it was completely false. It was a form letter that they used for marijuana clubs, underground marijuana clubs in Oakland. They said that letter to the judge, put our information on it. That was enough for the judge to issue a warrant, and that's enough to start their investigation. And their investigation could mean knocking down the doors and taking everything, and then you have to prove later that you were in the right. Unfortunately, that's an expensive process, and the vast majority of the time, if people aren't truly in this for the right reasons and don't have the legal support, the cops just get the money. And that had been what was happening to what are called Measure Z clubs in Oakland, which in 2014, Oakland, or actually 2004, Oakland passed the lowest priority for marijuana use and was one of the first cities. It actually was the first city in the entire country to have the legal adult use of cannabis. And ever since then, there was these Measure Z clubs. Well, what the cops eventually figured out is they can kick down the doors of the Measure Z clubs, take everything. The Measure Z clubs would never fight back, and they would just, because they didn't really have any legal grounds to fight back. They just had the city's lowest priority laws. There wasn't really anything for them to stand on. And the Measure Z would even, some cases, open in the exact same spot 6 months later or several months later, or just down the street. So there was this cycle of take everything from the Measure Z Club, let them reestablish themselves, and then do it all again. And that had been going on up until when they raided me. After they raided me, that whole program got exposed, and the officer that was leading it is no longer with the Oakland PD because we fought back. We ended up suing the city of Oakland in federal court. We went back and forth with them for a while and ended up withdrawing our lawsuit because they came up with an argument that said, well, and this was not the reason we were raided, but that we didn't have merit for the lawsuit because in the location that we're in, we need a special use permit to be a church. Now, most places in Oakland, you wouldn't need a special use permit to be a church. Just happened to be the zone that we were in, which was surrounded by 2 churches. We would need a special use permit to be a church. So we withdrew our lawsuit, and we've been slowly working on getting that conditional use permit to be a church. If they deny us that, then we go right back to court. But, it's when you're asking like why the war on drugs and what's really going on, what is causing all this horrible impact and this war on our own people, it's not a moral decision. It's not because drugs are wrong. It's not because you shouldn't be using them for religion or you shouldn't be using them altogether. It really is all about money. And the difference with the church is as long as you are doing it for the right reasons and can stand up in court and protect what you're doing, then you have some level of protection. That doesn't mean that they won't still do an investigation where they come take everything and then you got to prove yourself right later. It just means that when you go to actually sit in front of a judge and jury, that there's a good chance that the jury is going to find in your favor.
But can you ever expect to get your money back, like the money they took away from you?
Theoretically, yes, but most of the time, no. In a best case scenario, you get your legal fees back. And the problem with, especially what we're facing, is the only laws that protect what we do are actually at a federal level. Going through federal court costs a lot of money. Some of the churches who have done it and done it successfully, you're talking about bills that can easily be $5 to $7 million going through court. So you're much more worried about getting your attorney fees back than anything else because those are really the biggest expense. But we'll never see anything back from what they took from us back in 2020.
It sounds expensive, man, running a church in U.S.
I mean, if you're going to do what I do and provide public access for this stuff and sit there and say, hey, I'm right here, come get me, it's not going to be cheap. If you're just talking about a small group of people and you're not trying to draw any attention to yourself, you're never going to have any problems. That's why the vast majority of the churches and really the vast majority of people that we support underneath the church have small groups of friends where they use these tools between each other.
Cool. And the people that are coming to your church, are they coming because they're looking for healing, or they're looking for, spiritual exploration, or what is the most common complaint they get?
I mean, we literally have everybody coming for every reason you can imagine. We see all walks of life, from the homeless guys on the street to bankers and tech people and everything in between. We see families where their grandkids are bringing in the grandparents. We see literally every stage of life, every type of person, and they're all coming for different reasons. A lot of them are definitely coming for things that they hear microdoses can help with. Many of them come to just explore themselves a little deeper or try to get some answers of things that they're going through. But it's literally any reason, any walk of life. The whole thing about this is it's all about the personal experience. It's not about me telling you what I've experienced or reading from some old book. It's for you to actually go in and address the issues yourself and come out better.
Yeah, no, I agree with that part. That's a direct experience and no intermediaries. How does it, obviously you have a lot of expenses and you get rated, and that's expensive in the court cases. How does a church make money? Like, what's the business model? I run an ayahuasca retreat, right? We're not huge, but people come in, they pay some money. That's what I used to pay the workers. And the remainder we used to, build improvements and medicine house and things like that. How do churches work?
Well, everybody is a little different. The way that we work is when you join the church, you own everything that is the church. All the sacraments we have, everything else. But part of our membership agreement says you will contribute or donate towards the church to receive sacrament. So people come in and they contribute to the church and they receive the sacraments that they need. And that covers the expenses in producing, providing, and all of the legal bills and everything else that we have associated with what we do. Again, we have over 125,000 members now, so
It's like a small country. What's the end goal? Do you want to be the biggest religion in the US, or what is the best case scenario?
that everybody understands that they have a soul and understands why they're here and what they're supposed to do. That is the true goal of what we're doing, is to make sure that you understand there is a way to get these answers. You can get them from somebody that loves and cares about you more than anybody else, because they are you. They are what came to become you, and they know why you're here, what you've gone through, and what you need to learn. To me, if every human on the planet could have that experience and knew that they had the ability to have that experience, the world would be a much better place. It's not about me or any specific person or anything like that. It's really about you, and about you learning that you have something much deeper inside yourself that is you.
I agree with that mission. I want to do something similar. I want to wake up in a world where yesterday everyone had ayahuasca, to see how the world feels.
I haven't done it, and I don't necessarily feel that drawn to it myself, but whichever path you choose to use to go in deep, for me and what I've been shown is the mushrooms were the first. Ayahuasca came later, and it's although it's a very important technology, the original technology, it's all built into one small mushroom that you could take. And all you have to do is trust it and go in deep with it.
Yeah, of course, because with mushrooms, you just take the mushroom. You don't need to find the ingredients and cook them. But you should definitely try it one time. I think it's going to be interesting for you. In the extremely high doses that you work with, you ever afraid of losing yourself, as in, you come back, but you're not, maybe a bit of psychosis or something like that?
I can say I've lost myself several times, and I've also helped people who, there is something that's fairly common with the breakthrough dose, and especially when people don't really know what they're doing and don't have a lot of guidance, of feeling like you left something behind. To me, the only solution is you go back and you get it. So you got to do another dose to repair that and bring back what you lost. But I've done some incredibly deep, heavy doses, and you always come back. It just you have to also recognize, if you come back and you don't feel quite right, that means you just need to go in and do more work.
Have you had anyone that comes to your church and you tell them like, no, sorry, we're not going to give you the sacrament because of such and such conditions?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple really important things to watch out for. One of the big ones is heart issues, or especially transplanted hearts. And I would imagine this would be similar with ayahuasca too, although I don't know if there's been anything around it. But there's a really scary case of a 24-year-old heart transplant patient. This wasn't at my church, but in all the research that we were doing, who did a higher dose and her body rejected her heart. Science called it a overstimulation of the sympathetic nerve or something like that. To me, my concern is more that what these tools do is they wake you up, and they wake up every cell. So if your heart, which is not your heart, wakes up and goes, wait, I'm in a different body, you might have some problems. So I definitely don't recommend anybody that has had a transplanted heart, or really any transplanted organ, or has any sort of physical issues with their heart, do any sort of breakthrough work. Maybe even stay away from psychedelics.
Yeah, maybe worst case, if they're really desperate, try microdosing or something like that. And what is your take on integration? Like, how do you help people bring it all back together into their day-to-day life?
Yeah. Well, when we do these doses, there's a couple things that are requirements. One is you fast before the dose, ideally 24 hours before the dose. And what that'll do is just make sure that the medicine or the sacrament hits you as quickly as possible, and it's very controlled as far as the timing goes. But the other big one is after that one, immediately after the dose, we ask people questions, and these are meant to be non-leading questions that try to get them to tell us more about what they experienced. We audio record all of this, but the goal is, if you say something like, I saw a light, we might say, well, was there any sort of color? Did you see anything behind the light? Just to get people to spell out the details of their experience as much as possible while it's still fresh, while there's just fresh coming out of it. And to me, one of the most important things is then having you review that audio after the ceremony yourself, because there'll be a lot of things that it brings up that you either forgot about or maybe didn't realize were as important as they are with your fresh ears. And then as far as further integration, we're available. We have people that have had these doses that you can talk to about things that you might have experienced in them, but it's really about you giving yourself some time to just integrate the lessons that you were shown with yourself. So after the ceremony, the next day is something where we tell people you can't have anything that you got to do. You don't want to work. You don't want to do anything else. You just want to focus on you and what you just went through. And then the rest of the integration is as you prepare for the next ceremony. And this may be, 3-4 weeks later. This might be 3 or 4 months later, but just until you really feel ready that I've learned everything that it tried to teach me, and I'm ready to go back and learn more.
Cool. Yeah, we do something similar just with journaling, right? Giving people journals so they save the information while it's still fresh and then go back to it. Interesting, man. Interesting stuff. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry about your church being closed, at least the one in San Francisco. Hope you find a big place where you can take all of your 120,000 people, and that could be an interesting event. I mean, if quite a difficult one to organize, but
well, once we get the right building, we'll start doing regular sermons again. Before the pandemic, I was doing a sermon every Sunday at 4:20. We'd pass out joints, and I'd get up there and talk about cannabis, mushrooms, and other entheogenic plants, how they related to religion, and the insights that I was getting through the breakthrough dose. After the pandemic, it's been a little harder to get people together. and we got an extra 100,000 people. So yeah, we were already having a hard time fitting everybody into the building. We can't even do those events on a regular basis until we do have a space that can fit at least 500 to 1,000 people.
Do you ever get people making it about you? Not about the church, not about the sacrament, but being like, Dave, you're my God, or something like that.
Rarely. I think more, if anything, that there's a lot of people that have a misconception that's why I'm doing this, so that haven't met me or haven't talked to me, who think that, I'm just trying to be this guy standing on top of this thing. And it's really not about me. It's really, truly about you having the tools that you need to get your own answers. Because I can't tell you why you're here. I can't tell you why you went through what you went through, but I can tell you how to find the answers. I can tell you this is the safe way to go into these spaces and how to ask your soul what the questions are.
Yeah, it is important in this work to not make it about, the people who give the plant medicines, but about the final destination itself. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty great to see that you're conscious of that. Cool, Dave. So how can people find you? If somebody wants to join your church, where do they go?
Well, there's a couple websites. Ambrosia.church has a lot of information on it. That's got our dosage calculator, potency testing, a bunch of safety guides, and a lot of other stuff. So it's a really good resource for people. That will also lead you to Zydedoor, which is like side, but spelt with a Z. Zydedoor is the physical location that we have in Oakland where people can get their sacrament. If people are looking to reach me directly on Instagram, it's at DaveHemp420, and I do my best to get back to everybody. But if you're interested in the church, definitely, and you're in the Oakland area, come check out Zydedoor. And if you're curious about other things we do, make sure you check out the Ambrosia.church website.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for sharing, and I hope you give mushrooms to a lot of people and awaken their consciousness. I mean, especially in the US, you guys really need it. I just came back from US recently, and it's a really tense and really angry place.
I mean, it's really something that needs to happen all over the world, but for sure, there's a lot of need for it out here. This understanding that we are all one is one of the most important things that come out of this dose, that hating somebody else is the same as hating yourself, and that there really is no difference between skin colors or borders or languages. We are all God experiencing itself in every way possible. And if the whole world understood that, we'd be in a much better place.
Amen to that, Dave. Your church sounds less weird than most.
Well, again, it's really all about you experiencing the truth for yourself.
Cool. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for coming on. Guys, you've been listening to Ayahuasca Podcast. As always, we do the host Sam Believe, and I will see you in the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to support us and psychedelic renaissance at large, please follow us and leave us a like wherever it is you're listening. Share this episode with someone who will benefit from this information. Nothing in this podcast is intended as medical advice, and it is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This episode is sponsored by La Huayra Ayahuasca Retreat. At La Huayra, we combine affordability, accessibility, and authenticity. La Huayra, connect, heal, grow. Guys, I'm looking forward to hosting you.